Oh! Hello loves, in this video I'm going to be talking to you guys about the things that you need in your makeup kit that are not makeup. So this one's aimed really for MUAs, makeup artists, trainees, anyone who kind of does makeup for a job, particularly if you move around a lot, particularly if you work from a kit. So if you're salon based, some of this will probably still be relevant, but this is really for those people that really work from a kit. This is the stuff that they don't teach you in makeup school. It's the stuff that you really kind of learn as you go on the job. Your makeup kit, obviously, I think what you actually need in your makeup kit in regard to makeup and products and tools, it's kind of something that you figure out as you go along. You learn the products that you really like and the stuff that's going to work for you. Every makeup artist is obviously individual. Some things are standard, obviously, but generally I think we all we find our own way of working, and we discover what works best for us as artists. But there are some things that, as I've been working, I have discovered that you really do need to have, or at least it makes your life a lot easier. I'm just going to say now that some of this stuff I don't physically keep on my person, because if I move around an awful lot as part of my sort of general job as a makeup artist, so my kit's very mobile and it comes all sorts of different places with me. Some of this stuff actually lives in the car, so I have like a whole boot full of things that only kind of come out some of the time. I'm going to tell you what you need, and then you guys can kind of figure out whether you think this is going to be relevant for you or not. So one of the things, and this is super unglamorous, but one of the things that I definitely find that I need to have with me is some sort of bin bag, rubbish bag, plastic bags. I generally carry around the little disposable doggy poo bags, which sounds ridiculous, but they're actually really useful because they're only small. I can tie a little bag onto the end of my onset bag, and then I've got a little rubbish bag everywhere I go. They're also really good for covering up bits of equipment, just if the off chance it starts to rain and you're out and about. And you'd be surprised how many times I've whipped those bad boys out and put them over the top of camera equipment because we've suddenly had a shower or something like that. Not having somewhere to put your rubbish or your disposables is quite problematic, so you really need to be prepared for that. When I first started out, I used to have a little pot, like a little cup that I would take everywhere, and I would put the rubbish in that, but that would get filled up really, really quickly, and then I'd have to try and find somewhere to decant that. The great thing with the individual bags is, as they fill up, you can tie them off, put them in your kit bag and dispose of them later, which is great. Obviously, if you can reduce your disposables as much as possible by using things that are a bit more eco-friendly, that's advisable, but there are some things that we still need to be able to put in the rubbish when we're working. So that is my first suggestion for you. The next one is an extension cord or an extension cable of some description. I've gone through loads of these over the years. There's absolutely nothing worse than when you get onto a set or when you arrive at a job and they decide that you're going to need to curl someone's hair, or you're going to need the hairdryer for something for effect, and you cannot set up near a plug. Hopefully there's going to be a generator or a plug nearby, but the chances are you're not going to be able to sit in front of it. The other thing that often happens is that the plugs will be commandeered by other crew, so they might be using the plugs for charging things, or costume might need it for a steamer or whatever. So really you need to make sure that you've got an extension cable that you can work anywhere. And you need to make sure that it's safe as well. Okay, so making sure that you're not trailing wires for the sake of it, or that you're not putting them somewhere that is going to be in the way. So a nice long extension cable normally means, hopefully, wherever you're working, you can tuck the cable behind things, or you can kind of like pin it out of the way and you've still got access to power, which is great. Something that I have definitely needed in my kit, particularly when working with brides, is a sewing kit. So one of those little tiny sewing kits that you get from, you know, Home Bargains, or that you get from a little craft shop or something like that. A little sewing kit that has a couple of different threads, some buttons, some pins and some needles. It is really, really common that during a bridal season, when you're doing a lot of makeups, you might need to sew buttons back on. I've sewn bridesmaids into dresses when zips have popped before. And these things aren't your job, obviously, and you might be thinking, well, why should I bother with any of this stuff? It's not my job. But the more helpful you can be, the smoother things can run when you're there. It makes your job easier and you're much more likely to get called back for jobs in the future as well. Something that I get asked for a lot, so a product there, well, a tool that I get asked for an awful lot when I'm working, is a spray bottle. So people will often say, have you got a spray bottle and we need to spray some water, or we need some mist, or blah, blah, blah. An empty spray bottle that you can fill up again and again is so useful. You probably need one in your hair kit anyway, but I just find having one get handy. It gets used for so much stuff. On a recent job I was working on with a really big client, they just needed the background to look damp and wet, and they just didn't have anything that they could use other than basically getting a sponge and some water. So they said to me, do you have the spray bottle? And I was able to say yes, and it just makes everybody's lives easier when you can do that. Speaking of things that are wet and damp, an umbrella. So often when we're working outside and on set, if you're lucky, your props department, your costume department, runners might have access to umbrellas for principal cast, but they also might not, and they may not have enough for everybody in the crew. So it's really handy to have an umbrella in your car that you can just whip out and you can have handy to throw up to keep yourself dry and maybe even keep someone else dry, just in the off chance that you get caught out by the rain. And you know, the way it works with filming particularly and shooting for seasonal things, you always shoot the opposite season, so you'll always pretty much be shooting your winter clothes in summer and your summer clothes in winter, so having something like that handy is really great. And on the same thread as that, I try to keep little hand warmers in my kit. So they are they're almost like little bean bags. You've probably seen them if you do any outdoor stuff. You can keep them in your kit, and sometimes if your models, actors, principal cast, whatever, are getting a little bit colder, a bit chilly, and need a little pick-me-up, and even for yourself when you're working, having those little hand warmers are great because you can stuff them in pockets, you can put them in your waistband to warm you up when it's really cold. And sometimes when I'm working outside, I need my hands to really be functioning because they're one of my tools, so if my hands start to feel like they're getting a little bit frozen and like they might not be great, I get a little hand warmer going and it just brings my fingers back to life. This one's going to sound a little bit strange, but I would always recommend that you have a marker pen. So often when we're working, we might have things like equipment, bottles of water in particular, drinks, food, cups, things like that. Having a marker pen handy is really, really useful because there's often lots of people moving around on set. There's lots of people sharing equipment, picking things up, putting them down, and just being able to mark your things with your name or your principal cast's name or initials, or even just putting a star on something to say, so that you can recognise and say, this is mine. That's really, really helpful, particularly with drinks and stuff like that, because, you know, at the end, if you've ever been around at the end of the day on set, you'll know that there is so much stuff left lying around, bottles of water in particular. So a marker pen is really, really useful. It particularly as well if you're working with other makeup artists, you might have a crossover of some of your kit. So you might have some similar things or even the same. A little dot with a marker pen just lets you know that it's yours. And the last thing I would say that you definitely need is some sort of double-sided tape. That could be like a Velcro tape or just like a regular double-sided craft tape. Again, this is really handy for labelling things. It's really, really great for making small minor adjustments to stuff as well that won't affect makeup, but it might help with the kind of continuity between makeup and costume. If I give you an example, working on a shoot recently where we were shooting outside, we needed to keep a hat on somebody but also obviously maintain their hairstyle at the same time because they were going to be taking that hat off. So the difficulty was that it was very windy and that the wind kept catching that hat and wanted to pull it off all the time, which has a real impact on filming if you have to keep stopping to put it back on. So one of the things that we did to make the hat a little bit tighter, but obviously to not really affect the overall look is we took some double-sided tape and we actually taped some sponges on the inside of the hat, and that just made it a little snug and a little tight, and it just meant that it was less likely to move. And there's lots of incidences like that, you know, taping on glasses, taping on props, costume, and again, you might be thinking this isn't your job, and although in a way it technically isn't, the more you can do to make your life easier, the quicker and more efficient your day will go, and everybody's happy. So when you're not stopping on set to fix little things like that, it just makes everybody's job easier. So they're the things that I would definitely recommend you get and add to your kit. I hope you find this information useful. I'm going to do a load more videos like this, so I'm just talking really about general stuff to do with the industry and things that might help you, stuff that I definitely wish I could have watched a video on before I started working in the industry. And if you did enjoy it, please let me know in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video.